The midday sun beat down on a crowded city street where life hurried forward and most people looked the other way when they passed suffering. On that corner where shadows of skyscrapers fell against cracked sidewalks, a boy no older than 9 sat curled against a brick wall, his ribs pressed against his thin skin, his eyes hollow, his hands trembling as he clutched an empty paper cup. Strangers walked by with briefcases, grocery bags, some with pity in their eyes, but not enough courage in their hearts to stop. To them, he was invisible, just another child abandoned by fate. But for one woman, that sight would change not just his destiny, but hers as well. Her name was Catherine Rivers, a woman in her late 40s who had known more hardship than comfort. Her husband had died years earlier, leaving her to raise 2 children alone. Life was not easy. She worked 2 jobs, lived in a tiny apartment, and sometimes wondered how she would make rent. Yet, despite her own struggles, her heart had never hardened. She knew what it meant to feel alone, what it meant to have no one. So when she saw the boy on that corner, head bowed as though he had given up on the world, she could not walk past. Catherine crouched beside him, noticing his cracked lips and dirt-streaked face. His clothes were torn, shoes nearly falling apart, and his small frame shook as though each breath was a fight. He whispered his name, Daniel, and admitted he hadn't eaten in days. His mother had disappeared months earlier, and his father, lost to addiction, had never returned. He had been living on scraps and discarded food, surviving in the alleys of the city. To most, he was just another homeless child, destined to fade away. But Catherine could not let that happen. Without hesitation, she took his hand and guided him away from that corner. The days that followed were not easy. Bringing Daniel into her home, he meant more mouths to feed, more worry about bills, and even whispers from neighbors who didn't understand why she would risk her limited resources for someone who wasn't family. But Catherine ignored them. She gave Daniel her son's old clothes, cooked him warm meals, and held him close on nights when nightmares jolted him awake. Slowly, the boy who had once been silent and hollow began to smile again. He loved books, and Catherine would bring home worn-out copies from the thrift shop, encouraging him to read. She enrolled him in school, where he struggled at first, but showed a sharp, unshakable curiosity. Years passed, and though life remained difficult, Daniel grew stronger under Catherine's care. He was hard-working, often helping her carry groceries or clean the tiny apartment. Teachers noticed his brilliance, and with time, scholarships began to open doors that once seemed forever locked. Catherine's pride swelled when he earned admission into a prestigious university. On the day he left for college, she hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face, whispering, "Make something of your life, Daniel. Not for the world's applause, but for yourself and for the boy you once were." College was a battlefield of long nights, endless studying, and constant self-doubt. But Daniel carried Catherine's faith like a shield. He excelled in technology and business, spending hours in computer labs and libraries, chasing ideas that many dismissed as impossible. There were failures, investments that collapsed, prototypes that broke, dreams that seemed to dissolve in front of him. But each time he remembered the woman who had taken him in when he had nothing, he could not let despair win. By his late 20s, Daniel had founded a company that combined innovation with purpose, focusing on sustainable technology that addressed real human needs. Investors were skeptical, but soon his vision began to flourish. His name appeared in newspapers, his speeches drew crowds, and his business soared into billions. Yet despite his success, one thought remained constant in his mind: the woman who had saved him when the world turned away. One afternoon, years later, sleek black cars rolled slowly down a familiar city street. The air buzzed as pedestrians paused, watching the convoy stop near a rundown corner building. From one of the cars stepped Daniel, now a man in his early 30s, sharply dressed in a tailored suit. Cameras clicked, whispers spread. People recognized him as the billionaire who had captured the business world's attention. But Daniel wasn't here for headlines. He was here for her. Catherine was older now, her once dark hair streaked with gray, her body frailer, but her spirit still unbroken. Life had worn her down, yet her smile remained. When she saw the men step out of the car, she didn't recognize him at first. It wasn't until he dropped to one knee in front of her, bowing his head with tears in his eyes, that she understood. This was her Daniel. The starving boy she had once taken in, now returned as a man who could command the world's respect. The street went silent as security guards, onlookers, and even passers-by watched. Daniel took her hand, pressing it against his forehead. He told her that everything he was, every achievement, very success, was because she had refused to look away. He could have been forgotten, but she had given him a chance at life. And now he had returned not just with wealth, but with gratitude deeper than words. From that day on, Catherine's life transformed. Daniel moved her into a beautiful home, ensuring she never had to work another day in her life. More than that, he built a foundation in her honor dedicated to helping abandoned children, giving them shelter, food, and education. The same kindness she had once given him. Reporters covered the story. Headlines celebrated his humility. But for Daniel, the true reward was seeing the woman who saved him finally live without worry. Years later, when people asked Daniel what inspired his empire, he never spoke first of technology or strategy. He spoke of a hungry boy on a sidewalk and a woman who chose kindness over convenience. He said, "She saved me when I had nothing. Everything I do now is to honor that." Catherine and Daniel's story reminds us all that one decision, one moment of compassion, can ripple across decades and shape the future in ways we cannot imagine. And sometimes the smallest act, sharing food with a starving child, becomes the seed of a miracle.